Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 11 of the Retro Rumble podcast. I am your host for this episode, David White, and this episode's a bit of a different one. Usually go by a different particular topic each episode, but this was meant to be a Halloween episode, really, but as it's still sort of Halloween, I guess. We're focusing on horror games this time around, and we're going to look at our favorite horror game moments. And I'm joined by two of Cultural Gaming's staff, and first timer John, and second timer Chelsea, I believe. Chelsea, you're on the Pokemon episode, I believe.
I was indeed.
Yeah, cool. And this is John's first time. So how are you doing, guys?
I'm doing well. A bit tired, but yeah.
I dozed off before we recorded, so I'm trying to pick myself up. So what have you been playing at? What have you been doing? Been up to much? Been playing much?
I've really been playing the beta of Fallout 76 because I'm waiting for that to come out.
I thought that was already out. That shows what I know about modern games. I thought that was already out.
No, it comes out on November the 14th, I believe.
Okay,
Pretty close, right around the corner.
Yeah.
And what about yourself, John? What have you been playing much? Or are you doing the same?
Just recently, Red Dead, and
oh yeah,
it's fun. Yeah.
I picked up a game. Have you heard of a game called a little while ago? It's worth knowing that I went to a really cool event called Play Expo in Blackpool, up in North England, and coincidentally, I picked up a game. It was on my wish list for some time, and it occurred to me as I picked it up that this was a game that many believe to be a spiritual predecessor. And it's interesting because it is very similar to Red Dead. It's called simply Gun. Have you ever heard of it?
Oh yeah, Gun. I wouldn't call it that. I would say it's definitely its own game. Its own little bit of style game.
To be quite honest with you, I know very little about Red Dead. I know there was an actual predecessor, which is Red Dead Revolver, but I don't know if that was like a similar game or what. I understand that Red Dead was more inspired by the game Gunsmoke, right?
Yeah. I would say that with a Revolver, it was kind of like a niche sort of style of game at the time, like a niche genre. Because Western is kind of was like. Okay, yeah, something that you played in with arcades and stuff like that. When you go to the arcade rooms.
Yeah.
But yeah, it hasn't really taken off as it had with Red Dead Redemption. I would say that open world experience, just the fact that it was that Rockstar actually poured advertising into that. With Revolver, I haven't really seen any advertisements with that game when it released. So yeah, definitely those adverts helped Rockstar a lot with that game.
I mean, well, I wouldn't be surprised if Red Dead was intended as some sort of era of I was going to say a topic. I mean, a time, if you like, or an era that Grand Theft Auto could have done. They did Vice City, which is obviously 80s
Vice City, Miami
inspired.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Red Dead started as a kind of GTA 1800s or whenever it was, GTA to go really jump the shark and just go straight to the future, because my favorite movie of all time is Blade Runner, so I would love them to just sort of take the leap and go right ahead and create a GTA Neo Miami or something like that, some sort of future city, Neo Los Angeles or something like that. That'd be so cool.
I would love to do to see that happen, Mad Max type of thing, where you're oh shit, everything's just so over the top, there are these bandits, that are trying to kill you constantly, something like that would be cool. If they could take the engine of Red Dead Redemption 2 and just kind of put it into that and just be okay, well, there's this metropolis in one part of the map and then another part, and then the rest is nothing but run and gun, just you're out in the wilderness, get captured by bandits, get shot up a bit, that would be pretty cool.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And I also, if they did like a future Grand Theft Auto, you have things like hover cars and stuff like that, and laser weapons and androids and things like that, and just they're having this sort of rain-soaked, neon-lit dystopian city, like the future Los Angeles, is it Los Angeles of Blade Runner. I would just love to run around in all of that. There is a Blade Runner game, but I've never actually played it, surprisingly. So yeah, Gun's pretty cool. I've also picked up a bunch of other games that I've been traveling all over the place. Yesterday I traveled for 8 hours by bus to pick up a game called Ranger X, which is awesome, beautiful run and gun shoot 'em up hybrid. And all the games I got from Play Expo Blackpool I've yet to really dive into. So I got things like Another World, which is a really cool, gorgeous looking, really unique looking sort of adventure game, I guess, for kind of like flashback. Cyberball, which is American football with robots, which is awesome. Everything's better with robots. Dynamite Heady, which is like a really awesome, musically brilliant action platformer from Treasure. What else did I get? It's Megalomania, which I think has got a bit of a niche following. Pac-Mania, which is a really cool isometric take on Pac-Man that adds jumping. And so I haven't dove into them yet, but I've been meaning to sort of sit down for a while and play them. So that's what I've been doing.
I've answered already.
Oh, my bad. Oh yes, Fallout 76. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. We were talking for so long there. I forgot. Sorry. Yeah, Fallout 76. And so you haven't played the beta or anything yet, or are you waiting on it?
I've played 2 days of the beta. I can't play any more days of the beta because I'm away visiting someone. But from what I've seen of the beta so far and what I've played, it's looking to be a really, really interesting game.
I heard that they. Oh, sorry. I heard that they also deleted save files too for that game. Everyone's beta save files.
Yeah, the actual beta, like the whole 50 or 100 gigabytes of it, depending on what platform you're on, deleted itself.
Yeah.
What, like a glitch, or was it
a bug? Yeah,
a bug. Yeah, just deleted everything. And at this point, it's not a bug. At this point, it's a feature.
Yeah, it's a feature. It's what you'll expect.
Yep, it's Bethesda. Yeah. What do you expect?
Yeah, it's Bethesda. Exactly. Oh, that's their slogan, right?
Yeah.
What do you expect?
What do you expect? Yeah.
All right. So what we're going to do, listeners, is we're going to go through all of our personal top 5 favorite horror game moments, and we're going to go through them all one by one. We're going to start with our personal 5s, and then we go through 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1, right to the end. So, guys, shall we jump straight into it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my number 5 comes from, I think, a really overlooked horror game from about, I think it was 2001, I want to say. And it's a great game because you could switch between first and third person, which is, not a majorly cool thing, but it just makes certain areas of the game more like some areas where you got to get a bit gun heavy. Switching to first person is obviously really, really useful. Anyway, so it is arguably one of my favorite horror games, but I do think it's sadly really overlooked, and it's a game called The Suffering. Have you heard of it?
No, but it sounds interesting.
Oh, okay. So in order to sort of set up my number 5, I probably should explain the game a little bit more. So it's a game about a guy called Talk, which I believe is some sort of nickname, and he gets sort of he gets accused of murdering his wife and child, and he's not even sure if he did do it himself. He kind of claimed, he said he blacked out during the whole incident or something, but basically he was arrested for doing it, sent to this prison island called Carnate Island. Now what happens at the island is all of the horrible stuff that's happened, all of the killings, all of certain incidents and stuff like that, all of the just the evil that goes there, all the bad people that go there, and the whole island just becomes this kind of it's hard to describe in a way. It's kind of like a soup of evil, if you like, and it starts to manifest. So you get things like the guy who ran the electric chair. He went a bit crazy and put himself in the chair. He comes back as a ghost. And so does this doctor who was secretly experimenting on the inmates and things like that. And he comes back as this kind of really whimsical silent movie era crazy doctor character with really wide eyes, really crazy eyes, and it speaks in this kind of like flamboyant sort of theatrical manner and stuff like that. And he sort of analyzes talk throughout the entire game. I don't think you actually fight him. No, you don't fight him at all. He just throws you into situations, if I recall. But the one guy I'm going to refer to, the one moment I'm going to refer to, is in regards to a character called Hermes. Unlike the electric chair guy, Hermes was unique because Hermes started to become obsessed with the gas chamber, and he in a kind of disturbing sort of fascination and what's the word I'm looking for? He just become a bit too. He was overzealous in it all. He enjoyed it really, and so one day he thought, "I want to know what it's like," and he put himself in the chamber, and obviously he died. And he comes back as this kind of gas being, and he's all green and stuff like that. And the moment that he comes into it, it's more the boss fight. He's a boss, and the boss fight that you engage in with him is brilliant. But it's not so much that. It's the dialogue and the things that he says and stuff like that. He's a brilliant character, and I'm not even going to try and do an impersonation of him, but he has this kind of breathy voice, and it's quite creepy. So my number 5 is basically the boss fight against Hermes, where you finally release him. And how do you get rid of a gas? One way to get rid of it is to set fire to it if it's flammable, anyway. And that's what you end up doing. You end up throwing him into a furnace. So that's my number 5, is the boss fight against Hermes from The Suffering.
Escaping isn't as simple as just getting outside. But I don't need to tell you that. You know there is no real escape.
My number 5 is from a more modern game, I guess.
Ooh.
So it's The Evil Within 2, and this one sort of sat with me just because of the emotion behind it, really. But it's more discovering that the main character's daughter, the whole premise for the game's that he's got this trauma and this regret over not being able to save his daughter. It turns out that she's been alive the whole time, and his missing wife knew. So
I should probably come in here and say, by the way, listeners, spoiler alert, because some of these moments are obviously going to be significant, and some of them are obviously going to be spoilers in that case. So
sorry about that. But,
No.
yeah, it just sort of made my stomach sink, because the whole premise of the game has just been revolving around the fact that he's trying to find his daughter. And in the first one, that he believed that she was dead, and he had a lot of survivor's guilt and a lot of just general guilt over that. And then it's like all turned on its head, and it's like, well, what now? What do we do?
Wait, so he's been looking for his daughter?
He's sort of been looking for like the truth behind how she died, why she died, and why his wife went missing. and it turns out that his wife went missing to protect his still alive daughter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's weird, and it's like you don't expect it.
He has to now find. So he's been lied to.
Yes, he's been lied to.
Oh yeah,
so
I can
he's
imagine
been
that.
harboring all this guilt for years, and he never had to.
Oh wow, so he's wasted a huge chunk of his life, basically.
Yeah.
Wow, it's sort of a mixture of a big sinking feeling of no, I don't say regret, but realizing something like that, but also the kind of probably feels good that she's alive, but obviously,
yeah,
I'm guessing...
it's that. But how it's sat for me, it's just like it's sunk because no parent should go through that.
That's harsh.
It is.
Kidman?
Hello, Sebastian. It's been a long time.
3 years. I've been trying to track you down for 3 years.
And you thought you'd find me at the bottom of an empty bottle. Is that it?
And why are you here now, damn it?
You didn't find me because they didn't want you to. Calm down, Sebastian.
You knew what was gonna happen in that hospital, didn't you?
What happened at Beacon is in the past. You need to forget it.
You sound just like that psychologist the Force shoved down my throat. But he didn't have answers. You do. You're gonna tell me about Mobius.
I'm here because of this.
Where did you get this?
Lily's still alive.
Lily is dead! I read the police report! I was at her funeral!
We can rewrite history if we want to. Staging a death is child's play. Why would I come out of the shadows just to lie to you? Lily is alive, and she's with us. But she's in danger. We need you to help save her.
Save her? What have you done to her? Get your hands off me!
I was hoping you'd come willingly, Sebastian. But we don't have time for this bullshit. We need you. Lily needs you.
Come on, what's your number 5?
Alright, so it is Silent Hill 3.
Cool.
And let's see, it was I gotta say, like, it was an okay horror game, like, experience. Like, in the beginning, it was, like, really creepy, where you, like, went in the, you know, sewers and tunnels and whatnot. And then you, like, and there's this one really creepy, like, I don't want to say, like, scene, per se, but, like, it was just the area in general, was the amusement park. Like, when you first get there, like, it's, like, this ambiance of, like, okay, like, it's raining, or, well, I don't know, I can't really see the rain too well, like, you know, back then, with the TV I had at the time, but, like, it was, like, just, like, really dark and eerie. So you went in, and then you saw, like, these, you know, bloodied up dolls, like, just lying about, like, these life-size mascots.
The bunny. I love the bunny. The bunny is so cool. I got a friend who's obsessed with it.
Yeah, like, they do look cool, though, I admit. And then you have, like, these bodies in, like, these cages that look like they were hung up, like, for some reason. and yet somehow you're
Silent Hill's full of that stuff, though. Sort of weird, sort of humanoid, you can't tell if they're human.
yeah.
This could have been because of the technology at the time. I don't know, but I'm just thinking of the PS1, the first one here, where there was a lot of sort of like disfigured red masses. You don't know if they were like human or what, but they are. Maybe it was done on purpose. I don't know, but I love that sort of juxtaposition or that inversion of something that is normally happy or cute or beautiful or pretty or just generally positive, and it's flipped on its head. Like an amusement park being made to be like some sort of hellish dimension.
Yeah, and it was like it was like was it like as you like went like deeper throughout that area, like it was like, okay, well, you saw a gift shop, there was like a few little little areas to explore just to get like some key items, like a key and whatnot, and then like towards the end of that area, you have to like let's see, you have to go like down this roller coaster track. And I was like, damn it, okay, let's see what's gonna happen here, and I just remember like I didn't want to go. I did not want to go through that. like yeah, it's like one of those areas where you're just like, shoot, like what's gonna happen? Am I gonna die? Am I gonna be in a dream sequence? Am I going to be in a coma after this?
I think in my head, I envision it. It's already, I mean, it's already a dark area, and it's already full of dangers and things like that, or at least it gives that impression. Yeah. But not only that, if you're on a roller coaster track, it's also that added sort of precariousness where it's you're high up, or it's potentially slippery if it's been raining or something like that. So
you're only going one way too.
So
there's like nowhere else to go. Like it's like, yeah, if you try to backtrack, you're just like, let's see. All right, so if I go that way, well,
so you have to go
backtrack. Yeah, so you pretty much have to go that way. It was a fun area, but yeah, definitely very creepy.
No, I love that. I can just picture it now. I've not actually played Silent Hill 3, but I've only played the first two, and the Silent Hill series is full of areas which just exude this kind of I don't say dread, but every area feels dangerous. Every area feels like unsafe, and that anything can jump out at you and things like that. I think part of it's probably the effect of the fog from the first game, where although that was obviously that was there for a technical reason, it still created this claustrophobic sensation that anything could jump out at you and you won't see it until it's right there in front of you. So that is creepy. Yeah. So it's the idea of seeing this track ahead of me that for what I can see is suspended above the ground, and not being able to see up beyond that sounds really eerie. But I just love that sort of taking something that's usually full of fun and laughing and happiness, and then taking it and turning it into like something sadistic.
Simple. Yeah. And then like later on you get what could be considered like a spin-off, like a spiritual spin-off, should I say, which is the park, which is taken, I guess you could say it's taken directly from this scene.
Is this another chapter in the game you're saying, is it? Or
it's a different game entirely, like that somebody else made, but it has
it's called the park.
It's called the park. And it's basically like it looks like designed and with this area of this game in mind particularly, which is like if you decide to play it, I would suggest play it, at least try it out. It's similar to how it's presented, and with the dolls in mind as well, with the bunnies involved.
I think I've seen someone play that game. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's Park or Silent Hill 3?
The park.
The park, yeah.
I'll jump on to my number 4 then. Now, this one isn't from a horror game, but some people would find this game horrific. This scene comes from a game called Manhunt, and it is another Rockstar game, and it's obviously it's a game that's focused entirely on violence, but it's ultimately a stealth game. And the enemies that you're fighting aren't just like the typical stealth game enemies, like security or operatives, or even just like regular members of the public. They're there with the sole purpose of hunting you down. It's a crazy, violent game of hide and seek, and you play a character called Cash. And in one particular scene, it's right at the very end, pretty much. It's actually a penultimate scene. You find yourself in an attic space, and throughout the game, there's a character that's very subtly made nods to, and he's a character called Pigsy, and he is a complete maniac. He's a cannibal. He's a psychopathic murderer. And he wears a pig's head, obviously, since the name. And I think he thinks he's a pig that's constantly devouring. So he makes like all these weird, creepy snorting noises. He doesn't appear to be a man of great intelligence. He has this way of speaking. It's almost childlike in a way, which only adds to the creepiness. But in one scene, you're thrown into an attic space in this mansion in the middle of nowhere, which for the most part is a really nice mansion. But it's very clear that is where this character, Pigsy, is being kept almost. And this attic space is quite full of doors and dark corridors, and it's got this really horrible wallpaper as well, this really beige brown wallpaper, which is really old-fashioned and run down, and somehow adds to the scene. It's like if you go into an abandoned house from years and years ago that's been abandoned for like 40 years or something like that. It's still got the old wallpaper. It's got that kind of vibe about it. But in the scene, he's chasing you, and he's got a chainsaw, and your only way of really detecting him is the noise of the chainsaw. You can hear it sort of coming by, and he's quite quick as well, so you could be hiding in a corner and all of a sudden you hear this gradual increase of the sound of the chainsaw, and boom, he's there. He's walking through the door. He just walks right by you, and it's a really cool high tension moment. And you got to sneak up on him as well. You can't go toe to toe with him because the guy is huge and he's got a chainsaw. You're not going to beat him going fists flying or anything like that. It's just not going to happen. You've got to sneak up on him. And of course, he could turn around any second. So there's these moments where he's kind of hunched over and sort of wandering around in that kind of lethargic way that a killer might be portrayed, where they're kind of just like hunched over and almost shuffling zombie-like. And you've got to sneak up on him. Of course, Cash, when he's sneaking up on people, doesn't walk very, very quickly. So he could turn around. And when he turns around, you have no choice but to run, because he will kill you. So it's a brilliant moment through a game that is fairly repetitive up until that point. Really, you kind of hit the wall, make the bad guys come over, sneak up behind them, and do the horrible deed and take their head off or whatever. Because Manhunt is crazy for that stuff. All sorts of crazy weapons. But this is the one sequence which I thought really stands out in the entire game. And it's, like I say, super high tension. Have you guys played Manhunt? You must have heard of it at least.
Not really.
I've heard it. I have it, but I haven't played it.
I would highly recommend it. I mean, it might be a bit jarring because obviously it's a fairly old game, but it's not. We're not talking PS1 era jarring as such. It's more of it's a PS2 era game and original Xbox, and so visually it's not too bad and it controls really well. You can definitely tell it's made by Rockstar. It's actually, the game itself is actually set in the Grand Theft Auto universe. It's set in a city called Carcer City, and it is basically next door to Liberty City. In fact, in Grand Theft Auto 3 and pretty much all the Grand Theft Autos, they make various references to Carter City. There's a reference, I think, in San Andreas where they mentioned that the mayor was corrupt at nearby. Was arrested from nearby Carter City. So that's where it's set, and you can tell it's a Rockstar game just visually, the way the character moves.
I think they have. I think they have a small reference in Red Dead Redemption 2, actually.
Really?
Like with what is it? Like there's a house that you can sneak into, where I guess like it's sort of like a man bear pig type of thing, you know? Like some people think it's a Rockstar thing, or no, South Park thing, right? But no, it's it feels like a manhunt thing, you know, whether it be from the first one or the second one, because it has like the head of a pig, and then it's like, and it's all like sewn up together and like just sort of just tacked on a wall, with chains, and then there's like a floorboard, like a table, right? That looks like a, you know, that somebody was using like a wood saw to like sort of just cut something, you know, whether it be like limbs or whatnot.
So it's like a really loose reference to. So is it an Easter egg, or was it like a character or something?
It was an Easter egg. No, it was an Easter egg. You just
cool.
You had to like climb up behind this one second-story building, and then you just climb in there, and it was just there, like just the whole thing littered in blood and shit, and it was good.
That's awesome. I wonder if they could. I mean, the character of Pigsy isn't really fleshed out all that much in Manhunt. He's basically just portrayed as this blubbering maniac. But it would be really cool if they brought him back in some fashion.
Well, it's primarily like just, you know, that just like a bunch of like body parts that are like tacked on this wall, and then with a pig head. And then just blood literally everywhere, like on the walls and on this table. And I think
really
it's a loose reference.
So it sounds like really out of place as well, because it just thematically it doesn't sound like something you see in Red Dead. So it's like a really, really cool. Like I love Easter eggs. If I made a video, it would be full of Easter eggs, all sorts of like really obvious ones, really sort of like right there in front of your face, sort of obvious ones. But I would like really well hidden ones, and ones you like have to do certain actions to access, or even like wall breaking ones, which are quite literal, like the literal Easter egg in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, where you go up to it's the what's it called, the building? Well, it's a news media building, and you go up to the helipad, and you have to go up to the corner of the building, which is like faces up against another wall of the building adjacent, and you literally jump at the wall, but you go through it. There's no door or window. You just go through it. You just clip right through it. And in the room is like a nice little blue carpet, and on a pedestal there's a chocolate egg that says "Happy Easter" on it, and stuff like that, which is really so Rockstar, so Grand Theft Auto. But no, if you got Manhunt there, I can't recommend Manhunt enough. It polarizes people a little bit, because it was a bit divisive. People thought it was over the top, violent, and just stupid. Some people actually were a bit more analytical. They said like it's a bit basic, it's incredibly repetitive, and it is. I've not played Manhunt 2, but I imagine they would have like fleshed out a little bit more. But do play it, and you'll see what I mean when you get to the Cash vs Pigsy fight, because it really is like white knuckle tense. Like I found myself sort of holding my breath sometimes, like while I'm playing it, because I'm walking up slowly behind Pigsy, and he's there, sort of sniffing the air and doing the pig snorting, and he's there with a chainsaw, and it's revving slightly, and he's locked in this small space with you, so he doesn't really have a set sort of guard path. He's wandering. It's quite random. So you could turn left, you could turn right, or you could turn right away around, and you'd be nose to nose with him, nose to snout, I guess. It's really, it's such a good moment. It's high tension. I love it. It's brilliant. on, Chelsea. What's your 4?
Okay, so my 4 is actually from a game called Kholat, and I don't know if you've heard about this one because it's sort of it's not
Vaguely.
too obscure, but it's obscure enough. It's based off.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Yeah, it's based off a real event, which I'm not going to go into now, but it's called the Diablo Parsons, and if you're interested.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah, I've actually read about that quite a bit.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to read. So when you at the very beginning of the game, you sort of go out into I think it's the wilderness around the Ural Mountains, and you find this sort of stone ring, and when you go close to it, the stones float in the air, and for me, that sort of set the theme for the entire game. It was more like, oh, something's not right here. We should run. And when I first played that, I actually got killed because I didn't know that you had to run away.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it when that happens in games because it's some sort of indication that you're not meant to fight this. You're meant to run away to continue the story, to go to the next area and stuff like that. And so when you're like standing there going like, oh, what do I do? And then suddenly, boom, you're dead. I kind of hate that a little bit.
I actually stood there because I was like, oh, pretty stones.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
That was a trap. Like everyone loves pretty stones. We'll just make them float and yeah. The Diablo Pass stuff is really interesting, but I could talk about that on its own or for a podcast on its own. Diablo Pass incident is fascinating.
It really is.
But we'll try not to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah, we'll have a weird spin-off episode. Retro Rumble conspiracy theories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Although, speaking of which, I would love to do an episode, and it is related, I would love to do an episode on Polybius. That'd be cool. Why do we do that for Halloween? That would have been great. Or we leave it till next year. But so what is Kholat then? Is it like a first-person adventure game, isn't it, or something?
It's a first-person explorative horror game. So you can't really do anything but explore, pick up bits of paper, and you have to use a map to get around. And it's really supernatural. Like, it tries to talk about what could have happened at the Diablo Parsons. Like, it gives its own new spin on it. But at the same time, it's like more spooky because it gets like you're sort of alone in the wilderness. All you've got is a map and a compass, and that's about it.
Do you know, I'm not going to try and sound like a macho guy here, but there isn't much that actually like truly terrifies me. But the idea of being stuck in a forest when all I can see, I would rather be completely in the dark rather than just be able to see like a few feet ahead of me. Yeah. Like, because I assume that's what it's like. Right? Obviously, it's not pitch black. So having like just a torch or like my phone, just lighting up all these branches and stuff like that, and these animal noises, and I can't discern whether they're actually animals or what. And you're and the game probably plays on this a bit purposefully a bit constantly. Your imagination starts to take a little bit of control, and you start hearing things and seeing things that you think, did that just move? What was that? Did you see something white over there?
When you're there, it's like you're in the middle of the Ural Mountains, so it's like snow as far as I can see. So it's all just sort of the same thing over and over and over again. And you're in this sort of, like, at one point you can enter a cave and there's noises in it and you're not sure what they are, but nothing ever comes out. And it really plays on you. And it's like, why am I in here in the first place? Why am I still here?
That's awesome. I love that. And I also like that just because there's like a noise doesn't mean that something has to happen. It just sort of like tells you that something could happen, and you're waiting for it to happen, but nothing happens. That's a good like horror trick in a way to sort of create that anticipation. Yeah. And then, no, nothing's actually going to happen. We just made you think something was going to happen.
We just wanted to scare you.
Exactly. Yeah. Sounds cool. Is that a PC game? I might check this out.
Yes, it is actually on PC.
Steam?
Yes.
Super. I might check that out later.
Okay.
turn off all the lights. I got no one will really know this, but I just realized I've got the perfect setup for horror gaming, because right now I don't actually have a computer monitor. So what I got as a computer monitor, I'm staring at it right now, is basically a 48-inch TV. So it looks awesome, but it's a bit too big. But to play like a first-person game, it would be like practically VR.
Do it. Just do it.
Because the monitor will be right there, and the speakers are quite powerful as well. So turn off all the lights, and that'd be awesome.
Turn off all the lights and turn up your speakers all the way up.
You have to when you play horror games, in my opinion.
Do.
You see, you have to have one of those sort of hunker down. Is that a word? Hunker down, and maybe just have some basic. Put your phone over there. Just have something to drink and something to eat, maybe. And just like with a horror film, really, turn off all the lights, so all you have is the screen.
Yeah.
Try actually playing it in a storm. That gets pretty freaky.
Oh yeah, that would be even worse.
Yeah, like I've done that before. It's like, oh shoot, like there's a storm right outside that just happened.
Why did I do this?
It's like, oh man, oh too late now. No turning back.
No turning back at all.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect time
Go
to
on,
play.
then, what's your number? Are we on number 4?
We're on number 4.
We are on number 4, but we're on John's number 4. Go on, John.
Alright, so for my number 4 is Eternal Darkness.
Sanity's Requiem?
This game is... What's that? Yeah, Sanity's Requiem.
The GameCube game, yeah. I dabbled with that a little bit. I really wanted to go back into it, so this will get me going, so go for it.
Yeah, like, it is... let's see, I want to say it is a masterpiece, like... Okay, so, like, everybody knows, like, the fact that it messes with your mind and stuff like that, like, when it says it's gonna delete your files and stuff like that, and, like, you get
Doesn't it also pretend to break?
It pretends to break your console, or your disc, or whatever. By sending you
people
to,
say
like,
Hideo Kojima was good at that, but no, I imagine those people haven't played this game.
Hideo Kojima actually took I think it was Psycho Mantis from Twin Snakes. They basically like he was inspired by this game, I think. Like I think that's what they said, like what I read up on anyways, was that Psycho Mantis, like the fact that it could look in your save files and like anticipate your moves and whatnot. Yeah, that was basically taken from Sanity's Requiem, and it's pretty cool though. Like the way it starts out is with the death of your grandfather, and then so like you go to this mansion, you find out, oh shoot, he's dead. Like what happened, and then like 2 weeks later, then you start to sort of like poke around the actual mansion itself and try to see if you can find anything about, like what happened, like maybe some clues. But really, it's just a dive into like the past, into the, I guess you could say the ancestry of the house or whatnot.
It goes way back, doesn't it? It goes back to Egyptian, ancient Egyptian times.
To 2080. And let's see, probably one of the most scary moments is probably a bathtub scene, like where, like, okay, so you go to the right, and then like, oh, okay, yeah, never mind, but you have to use the key, of course, to get there. So you have to be at least halfway through the game. So you go up to the right, there's this creepy statue like eyeing you as you go down the hallway, but then you go inside this bathroom, and then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, like, you hear a scream with this pool of blood and a naked lady like dead in there. Then it reverts back, and you see like, oh, she was never there. The hell?
Oh,
like just
right. So
one of those jump scares, yeah.
So the lady was there one moment and then not the next.
Yeah, just like, but there was no rhyme or reason. Like, it didn't even lead up to it. Like, there was no mention in, like, it was more like one of those scenes in movies like where they just use it to establish like what happened in that
Kind of like
bathroom,
a
and it's been
flashback.
used a lot. Yeah, yeah, kind of, right? Except it's been used a lot, and it's like it's more just like a astral projection type of flashback, that they
Mm.
and all movies have used it. Well, not all, but like a lot of films have used this, but like this was back then, this was before like that trope was even a thing,
Mm.
and like you're just like, oh well, I'm gonna go into the bathroom and check around, like even Resident Evil, you had
Yeah.
like you would check bathrooms and there'd maybe be a zombie and it'd be and that'd be it, like it wouldn't like be like a whole scene of like something going on just out of nowhere.
The
like,
excuse me. Sorry, go on.
yeah. Oh no, I was just gonna say like yeah, they're like games like this definitely play tricks, like no matter where you go it seems like there's always something that could potentially happen, just out of nowhere, just happenstance. You go into
Does a
a
really good
room.
job of creating like a presence, a sort of
Yeah.
a malevolent presence wherever you go.
Yeah.
Something bad can
Yeah.
happen at any second.
But like
Yeah.
the whole like a good majority of the game though isn't even like that. Like a majority of it is a little creepy, but it's like it has to do with like spells and incantations, all that stuff. Like it has to do, like it feels lighthearted half the time, like compared to horror games. It feels a little light-footed, I guess you could say. Like it's not
It's not
really.
really horror when you're actually in the house, isn't it? It's more of a
Yeah.
haunted house horror, kind of like makes you think of Clock Tower 3 a little bit.
Yeah, so pretty much when you're in a house, that's when that's when it's really creepy. But then like when you go to like like ancient times, like when you start to go back right in your for the history and all that, it's like it's really like light, it's really light on the horror aspect. But then
that's good in a way, because it's a good, nicely contrasting, because it's kind of saying, if we go back a bit, everything was hunky dory. Stuff was happening, events were happening, and it's all led up to this one moment where everything has hit the fan and everything's bad now. So it's cool. It's like these were not happier times, but more brighter, less scary times, and now it's all come to this, where in the modern times where things are actually really quite creepy and scary and deadly.
Yeah. Well, like before, like you'd get like maybe a voice or two or whatever, or like you'd be thrust into a dungeon, typical like RPG or action adventure game sort of mechanics. But then like you get thrust into this mansion again, and it's like, all right, it's become a official horror game again, Yeah, that was really cool. I like that. And then and then they try to kickstart a spiritual successor to that too. I forgot what it was called though.
I was gonna actually say
it's
that
like-
that's a game that would be ripe for a remake.
Yeah, but then this, like the first time he didn't make any money out, he didn't really get like that much money. There was a lot of controversy surrounding it somehow, and then it had to be scrapped.
Okay.
Second time he tried it again, same thing, had to be scrapped. The third time, like now he's trying to reboot it again, through a different company. So hopefully we get a good sequel sometime
Just go for a sequel,
in the
yeah, why not?
future. Yeah, that's what he's trying to do.
I mean, to slightly derail the topic a little bit, I am slightly always disappointed when I hear about remakes and things like that to standalone games. I always think, why not just go for a sequel? It's you're gonna be doing the same thing anyway. I mean, you're gonna be essentially making a modern take on the game anyway. So why do the same game again? Why not just like make a new entry in the series? Don't worry about remaking a game, because we know what happens. We know all about it. Unless you dramatically change the game, just like they're doing for Resident Evil 2 remake, just like they're doing for the Final Fantasy 7 remake, they're changing the game a little bit. rather than making it a straight up visual modernization, they're actually revamping the gameplay as well. So that's okay. I'm willing to accept that. But if you're going to make a remake, why not make a sequel instead?
Well, I think I think the original developer, who was on the project, like he was like he had a demo going. It was either a demo or just like a video or whatever, right? But like he showed off an original script for the sequel that he was gonna, come out with, but that never happened. So we may or may not get one in the future.
Yeah, sadly, it was only it only really gained a cult following, but even later on, and it finds its way onto a lot of horror game lists and things like that. But it obviously didn't make enough money to warrant a sequel, even if the story and the games kind of could do it, can definitely, as a sequel. I mean, even if the games or story could warrant a sequel quite easily, if the money isn't there, no one's going to touch it. Sadly, that's just how it is.
Well,
but
it was on a Nintendo console, so
I hope he manages to get a sequel going, because that's a game that should have had a good couple of sequels by now.
Yeah.
All right, so on to number 3 then. Now, I love my number 3. It's one of my favorite moments in the entire series. And it also features one of my favorite enemies from the entire series. And this comes from Resident Evil 4. I bet there are listeners right now going, when are we going to get to Resident Evil? Because someone should have mentioned Resident Evil by now. Or you mentioned Silent Hill, so I bet people were happy with that as well.
Well, I mentioned Resident Evil in comparison, but yeah.
yeah. So this game has tons of brilliant moments, really. I mean, the initial moment when you meet the Ganados, and that's kind of like different. You realize it's a different take on the zombie. It's slightly more human, but still completely out of their mind. With like their goals, it's not about eating here. It's just about killing. They just want to kill Leon. So it's a different type of enemy. It's really, really, really cool. So right from the off, Resi is full of really cool moments. But the moment that stood out for me, the moment that really stood out for me. The first time that Leon encounters the Regenerators, which are also known as Iron Maidens, I understand. And these are really tricky enemies. You guys have played Resident Evil 4, right? I assume?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No? Oh, okay. Well, spoiler alert for you, because these are really cool enemies. I particularly remember these enemies actually terrified my ex-partner to the point where she couldn't play. I basically had to take over for her. And only because they seem invincible initially. And the noise they make is fantastic. As far as horror gaming goes, they make this kind of... I can't describe it. It's like a painful... wheezing sound, I guess, and it sounds like they're struggling to breathe. But of course, just like I mentioned earlier with Pigsy, his chainsaw gradually gets louder as he gets closer. These guys are similar, and they actually shoot their arms out and grab you at any time. They are quite unpredictable as well. But there is a moment where you're somewhere in the last third of the game when you go onto an island which is an offshoot of, I think it's an island, or it's an area which is kind of like off to the side of the overall area that you're in, and it completely changes. It goes back to Resident Evil in a way that it's a high-tech facility, and Leon comes across this thing on a surgical table, and it looks thoroughly dead. And I'm starting to think if I'm actually remembering it incorrectly. But oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's on the table. You leave the room, and you find a document or something that tells you about the Regenerators. And when you put the document down, It basically explains them that they can only be killed by being shot in certain parts of their body. You have to use a infrared. The most effective way to kill them is to use an infrared sniper rifle from a distance and hit these sort of glands that they have. Some of them have like 5 glands, some of them only have a couple. So you have to do it this way. You can't actually go blasting away at them. You can, but you're going to waste a lot of bullets. Anyway, so yeah, they're genuinely creepy. And you find one on a bed, and you leave the room. You find this document. You put the document down. You go out to the room, and just as you move, it's kind of brilliant because it does a really cool job of, you can stand there, nothing will happen, and just as you move the controller towards the door opens suddenly, and it's the thing that was on the bed is right there in front of you. The regenerator is right in front of you, and you only have a moment to react before it grabs. And it has that noise as well, because the noise the door just makes this metallic swish sound. So you got the gentle tension music happening, all of a sudden, zoom, and he's right there. And it's genuinely brilliant because and visually as well, it's cinematographically, you might say, even there's lights behind the regenerator as well, so it appears as this kind of like deformed silhouette. So that was a really, really cool moment, because even I jumped, because it just, boom, it was right there. And you can't just go blasting away at it. You basically, the best thing to do is to run away from it and try and take it out from afar. Even later on, when you discover more in this kind of like this, I think it's like a little prison complex, if I remember correctly. You go into this other area, and you can share them in there. And even though you've already fought one or two, you still think, oh god, these things, they genuinely are like quite scary and quite formidable, but not in a frustrating way. I never found them frustrating. Most people would think like, oh, these things again, they're going to take it's going to take me ages to kill these things. But they're such a brilliant character, such a brilliant enemy, and when they are coming towards you, you can't help but panic a little bit, because you've got to get your hair trigger right. You can't just go blasting away. You've got to pull up your sniper rifle, and they do this sort of waddle as well. So you got to kind of like time your shots a little bit, and you got to think, can I take out this many targets before it gets to me? Can I hit as many of its glands? I don't know what they are. Can I take out as many of its weak points, shall we say, before it gets to me? So as a character alone, they're brilliant, but it's just that one moment where the doors just swish open. It makes me, even though I know it's coming, it's one of those moments it's coming, but it makes me jump every time. It's brilliant. It's one of my favorite Resident Evil moments. Go on, Charles, on to you.
All right. So my next one is from Alien Isolation. When it's near the end game, where you've been walking around in this alien nest for a while, and you sort of have to blow it up, and you manage to do so, and it seems like everything's like hunky-dory, but then like you see more aliens than the one you saw crawling up the building that you're in, and it's just this heart-wrenching, sinking feeling. It's like, I screwed up, and now I'm never going to survive. Because so far, like, you've always been thinking there's only one alien, but there's not. There's like hundreds of them, and at that point, it's like, now what do I do? It just puts a new spin on Alien Isolation. There's aliens and only one of me.
That's where the second movie went wrong, I think. It didn't kind of focus on there's loads of them now. It kind of just went like, there's loads of cannon fodder now. And that's where the second film went wrong, in my opinion. But no, I can totally see that, because if you've been basically fighting, because up until that point, I've not played Alien Isolation, so up until that point, am I right in assuming that it's just like Pigs again, it's just pretty much a hide and seek sequence?
Yeah,
and now you got to fight them. You have no choice.
Yeah, and you can't really fight them. You don't have the means to do so. The only thing that you've got is a flamethrower that works on them, and that only scares them away. So, and you've only got limited ammo, so if you run out, you're basically screwed. So you've got to
What do you do in this sequence then?
You've got to hide as much as you can, and only use your flamethrower when you're caught out in the open.
Right.
And it's really hard because
It sounds impossible.
I tried to play it and got stuck under a table and died, so that was fun. But
How
Yeah, I
embarrassing.
think
What a way to go
I
out.
think with that game, like you had like your voice too, like if you had like a microphone on or something like that, like
Yep.
could be used.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to sort of like so like with every movement, like I remember, yeah, like that game, like with every movement, like you weren't safe. Like if you had a microphone on, that just made it that much more difficult. And
Yeah, because if you had a mic on and if you spoke, it would hear you, and your little your movement tracker, if you had that on, it could hear that and come after you.
yeah,
I love that. That is a great bit of game design right there. That is so cool. Like the thing that can help you survive is also the thing that can help you die as well.
Yeah.
It's kind
Yeah.
of genius.
Yes.
It's funny enough, they actually had that function in Manhunt. They didn't really advertise it or even make a big deal of it, but you can actually use a microphone and headset in Manhunt. And part of the gameplay is that you make noises to attract your enemies over. But if you have the headset on, you can basically shout, and they will hear it, which is a really cool. You can go like, "Oh, douchebag," and they would like come over and investigate. And also, you could obviously hear them. It'd be like a surround sound as well, so the environment would feel real to you, and you could hear them from where they're shouting and stuff like that. So yeah, cool.
I wish more games would do that, honestly. Like
that
there's some,
mechanic is great.
yeah, like there's some hint of it of you being able to use like that mechanic in GTA 5, like where if you're holding somebody up, you can just shout, "Hey, give me the money," and then like the louder you project your voice, like the faster they'll go. But yeah, it's such a cool mechanic. Like no matter what game
That's actually really cool.
it's in.
It's
I like that.
criminally underrated underused.
Using voice mechanics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, especially in horror games. Like the problem is, though, of course, is like when you mentioned there earlier that the alien can hear you. Obviously, in Manhunt, in that case, you use it as a function, you use it as a tactical thing. I suppose it could be used by the enemies to find you, of course, but you can just, I can't imagine it being that sensitive. But we're talking about xenomorphs here, which are basically hunting machines.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably have immense hearing and brilliant sensory skills. So but all I can think of is that's cool and all, but couldn't you just mute your headset?
Well, no, like I think this was made primarily for streamers in mind. That's why, like for people who would actually stream, like they would
Just
plug it in, and like would be.
Yeah, and I don't think they really showed that it was a function that they actually had in the game until you were playing it and streaming it.
Yeah,
that would be cool, especially I'm thinking of things like Sanity's Requiem right now. I mean Eternal Darkness. If you had headphones on, it probably does this anyway. I don't know. If you had headphones on, just as it's a game that kind of tries to convince you that you're going insane. I think it would be cool if you could like hear voices and things like that, little whispers and things like that. But it probably does that anyway. That's probably just a function of the game, that it just comes through the left speaker or the right speaker of your TV in the same way that it would go through your headset. But still, so things like that could be utilized where the sounds could be so inaudible. The only way to hear them is actually to put headphones on. Or how about this? An enemy which is really quiet, so you have to be able to hear them. Or have some sort of device which can detect enemies, but it only works when you've got your headset plugged in. So you have to like listen to say for example in Alien Isolation, where the motion detector would only work if you had your headset in. So you'd have that constant like beep 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 in your ear, and
that would be cool.
And it gets a little bit louder and faster in your ear, but it only works when you have your headset on. That'd be cool.
Why didn't they do that?
Go on, John, what's your number 3?
Right, so my number 3 is Rule of Rose.
Okay. I've not heard of this.
Yeah, okay. So, like, it's a pretty cool. It's actually one of the rarest PS2 games around, just because of the limited production run.
Mhm.
But like it's basically featured like around like children, and they have this game that they play and stuff like that. And of course they have a leader and then the followers. And it's all about like I guess like sort of like this like you don't break the rules type of thing. Like you don't
Oh,
like
I
there
have
are
seen
rules to
those.
follow. Yeah, then like you also gather like resources or clues like to move on to the next part of the game. And there are creepy adult figureheads, which either they're unfriendly towards you or they just don't care that you're there, you know. And you primarily you awake on this like floating airship
Okay,
during a long yeah, during like a mild cutscene, like when you're following this little kid, you're all of a sudden you're digging up a grave, and then and then like you uh after that scene you awaken on an airship, which I'm guessing is sort of like her subconscious or something like that, you know. It's like it's really weird how it works. It's a psychological horror.
sounds trippy.
It is. Um, but yeah, like what is it? And there's this one creepy scene, right? Like you're when you start off on the airship, pretty much, yeah. Like you're given an intro to the kids and whatever, and they tell you like stuff that you have to find. You have to go through and collect like certain things, like just sort of the typical fetch quest. And then you're opening doors, right? As you're walking through each door, you're just like, okay, well, like it's just this black screen with its door opening. And then like you go on to like the 6th or 7th door, and you don't expect it. It's like all of a sudden this one guy just like, okay, so you open the door, right? And it just slides like normally, like this little scene of a door sliding out. And there's just this dude standing there, right? This one old guy. And that freaked me the hell out. I'm like, oh my god. Just because you do not expect it.
In my head, I imagine it like you open the door and it's like a dark room, but there's moonlight outside, so you only see the silhouette of a man against the window. In a way, that's how I imagine it.
Like no, it's more like, okay, so like think of like Resident Evil, right? You keep opening the doors. Let's say there's nothing, right? Like you're opening the door like 100 times, like to go into rooms and all that. You go back out of rooms, you go back into rooms, other than like that one room, right? You open the door, right? And instead of like going inside the room, you just see this guy appear out of nowhere.
It kind of makes me think of there's a scene in Resident Evil 2 where it's brilliant in a way, because I'm kind of thinking of it. This could have been in one of my number fives, but it's one of my top fives. But is it like there's a scene in Resident Evil 2 where, of course, in Resident Evil 2 it made famous the very slow opening doors constantly.
Yeah.
And some were a bit more cinematic. They would have like heartbeats in the door, and the door would open slower and stuff like that. It would all be that sort of stuff. But in one particular moment, they show the door opening, but in the same animation sequence, because it becomes comforting in a way, because you never expect anything when those doors are opening, because it's just the same animation over and over again. So you never expect a thing. But on this one occasion, and I think this is brilliant. I think this was done intentionally. The door opens, and all of a sudden these zombies come through. Like these 3 zombies start walking towards you, and you think, wait, this is meant to happen. They're meant to be in the room, and that's was it like that, where like you open the door and it just sort of jumps out at you?
Yeah. And then you literally like just jump, because like you don't realize it, because like you're so used to it, right? Like literally, it was just me and my friend in his room, right, with the lights off and stuff like that, and it was on this huge projector screen, so we were like in the action, like we were like in that room in that moment.
You're
And then,
playing it
like,
on a
all of a
projector.
sudden, yeah, then like the
That's
dude's
awesome.
just standing there, right? Think of like, right, so think of yourself like just standing in the doorway, right? And then with this sliding door just sort of like just going past, like just opening, right? And then you're just standing there, you know? And it's kind of like that. The dude was just there, right? And the door was just slowly sliding past him, like as it was opening. And then we didn't
Oh, so he's
realize
really
it too
close to
till
the
like
door.
5 seconds later, huh?
So he's like really close to the door. He's like right there in the doorway.
Yeah, he was like right
Oh,
there.
cool.
And then like we didn't even realize it, right? And then like 5 seconds later, we're like, oh shoot. Yeah. It's just one of those what do you call it, those like reaction times, like,
Oh, QTs?
or no,
Quick time
it
events?
was it was reaction, like reacting to it.
Delayed reaction right there.
Yeah, delayed reaction. There you go.
I know that it's a kind of a rare game, and out of curiosity, I just looked up Rule of Rose, and it goes for, in either PAL or non-PAL regions, somewhere in the area of about $200.
Yes, it is. That's used, by the way. A brand new copy can cost you anywhere from $500 to $800.
What?
Yes.
Sadly, the rarer game isn't, and if it becomes notorious for some particular reason, the price just shoots up. It always happens.
And guess what, too? I almost, fun fact, I almost traded it in back then, but then they wanted 7 cents for it, and I'm like, no, I'll keep it. Thank you.
They wanted 7 cents for it. Wow.
Well, because like back then it was brand new and nobody like knew about it, so there were still copies like on the shelf, unopened and shit. So like, I was just like, all right, yeah, well, because like obviously it wasn't popular if they just wanted 7 cents for it. So yeah, then I still have it to this day. Yeah, I still have it. I still have the game.
Cents. You still got it.
7
Cool.
cents.
Good.
Yeah, it's definitely a game though to check out. Just if you got the money, check it out.
I'm the kind of person who would blow like a. For me, it's about £150 loose, and according to PriceCharting.com, in PAL region would go for about a completing box about £140.
Yeah.
That's
I don't think it was.
If I have £140 to blow, I would consider it. But I imagine just finding a copy is probably hard enough.
Yeah, like was it? I think in let's see. I think in actually in the UK, like they banned it in the UK, so it only ever got like a couple of region releases, like around like Germany and other places around
there was
Europe,
like a moral
but it never
panic.
made it to the UK. Yeah,
there was a ridiculous moral panic because people thought there was like some violence portrayed against children, but
against kids,
that kind of happens a lot in games. No, not a lot, but that happens a fair amount in games. But I think, just like anything, it gets blown way out of proportion, and people thought that it was going to depict children being seriously harmed.
Yeah, but like I think the main thing that they focused on was, okay, there's a kid, and now that kid has a gun. Like literally, like that's like halfway through, or towards the like beginning middle. Like you're a kid, right? You're a small like teen or whatever, and you get a gun. That's just, I think that's what freaked a lot of people out.
I'm just looking at a quote here on Wikipedia. So all the moral panic and obviously the violence in video games discussion was brought up again, and it was alleged that the game had scenes of children buried alive underground, as that would being buried alive does indicate it's already underground, so I don't know why it needs it. Yeah. And in-game sadomasochism. That's not really wrong, is it? That's just a preference, and of course then underage eroticism. So. Well, but like everything else, it's obviously been way blown out of proportion.
It was kind of like misconstrued. Like, okay, yeah, there's like this
It always is. It always
erotic undertone, but I never saw it like in that game. Like, there was really nothing. They
Yeah.
just claimed that because they were little orphan schoolgirls, right? Wearing just a dress, and like occasionally you could maybe like see some panty shots, like how they normally depict in anime
Yeah.
or in Japanese video games, because what I think it did come from a Japanese company, right?
Yeah, it was developed by, it's published by Atlas, which are Japanese, I believe. It was developed by a company called Punchline.
Yeah,
And
so that was
Punchline is Japanese, yeah.
yeah, so that's pretty much where the whole thing like came about, and that was ridiculous, because Japanese always do that. So
Yeah, it's just a fan service. It's never. I mean, obviously there are
Yeah.
games and also anime that does push the boundaries a little bit, and is really gratuitous.
yeah,
High School of the Dead, for example, Prison School
yeah,
is a particular example of it. But from what I can see, image-wise, it's fairly tame as far as the depiction of schoolgirls goes. It's or much, or even anywhere for that matter. It just look like schoolgirls to me, regular schoolgirls.
Yeah,
So
that's
obviously,
why
it's
it
just
wasn't,
another example of the media creating a panic so they can sell newspapers and stuff like that, creating it
Right.
out of nothing. It's Mortal Kombat and Lethal Enforcers all over again. It's just nonsense. Manhunt is another example. Manhunt is gratuitously violent, but that's kind of the point. But you have to be a maniac to be inspired by a game like to Manhunt. You have to be a maniac to be inspired by a game like Manhunt to go out and copy it. You have to already be kind of crazy, so you can't really blame the game. But this this is just nonsense.
Well, like
But,
every medium, every medium has its people who attribute that to violence, like music, then then TV, then
Comic
and then now
books,
video games, comic books, all that stuff. So but I mean, this game is fairly decent to, if not
it
like a
looks good as
a
well.
good game. Yeah,
It looks visually very, very nice.
Yeah, it's
And
one of those
I'm looking at
creepy
the cover art
games.
as well. It's very Tim Burton cover art as well. It looks like it looks like a really odd. It looks like a bunny tied to a branch. Is a bit strange.
Still having the box though. Still having the box in the game in flawless condition is a plus for my my collection. It's
certainly one that I'd like to get my hands on because it just looks very interesting. It kind of makes me think of Alone in the Dark, but it certainly makes me think of Clock Tower 3. Clock Tower 3 is very, very, very much the same in that it had the third person adventure, and it wasn't set in a school, it was set all over the place, or a spaceship for that matter, but it featured a schoolgirl being chased by all sorts of different types of maniacs. Some guy obsessed with acid, and one with the famous scissor man. So no one seemed to kick up a stink about that. It's as soon as one person gets a little bit causes a moral panic, everybody jumps on it and tries to act like they have a real they've always had a problem with it, and it's time to stop it and all this stuff. God.
Well, it's because like this one featured little kids.
Irritates me.
Like it featured it featured pre-pubescent kids, so it was really little kids,
that alone. That alone made people panic. They thought oh my god, children! It must be video game. People play video games are weird, right? So it must be really weird. It's a lot of stereotyping that helps to get people create that panic, I reckon.
Yeah, then Clock Tower, featured a teenager, but she looked almost adult, so they were like, oh, well, that's okay. She gets murdered, that's fine.
but she turns into a total badass in the end. She basically becomes a kind of an almost like a godlike being in order to fight the big bad, the final boss. She becomes super powerful. So in a way, it's kind of like going from helpless innocent schoolgirl, and she turns into a hero. So they should be looking at that as a good thing. But obviously, no one kicked up a thing about kicked up an issue about Clock Tower 3 anyway.
But
So.
I mean, that was only in the UK, so it wasn't. It was not in the US. So I don't know. It was definitely one of those. It's definitely a game to check out, though, if you're into horror games. Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite late as well. It was released in the PlayStation 2's life as well. So no wonder it didn't get much of a 2006. So no wonder it didn't get much of a chance to sell well, and why it's so rare. So let's get moving then. So I believe would feature on a lot of people's lists of horror game moments that just make them jump. So for me, this comes from Resident Evil 2, and it is a really brilliant moment where it's really quite clever game design in a way where you're playing as Claire or Leon, and you're going deep into the Raccoon City Police Department. By the way, one of my original choices was going to be when you enter the police station, because the music for me in the police station is some of the best video game music ever made, and just that piano, everything about that is perfect. And just I remember when I first played the game and I first went in that room, in that place, and there was this aura of mystery, and this music was perfect, brilliant. But no, it's when you go deeper into the police station and you get to the interrogation rooms. People already know what I'm talking about, I reckon, as I say that. In one interrogation room, there's two interrogation rooms actually, if I remember correctly. Or is there? Yeah, they kind of have a mirrored window in the middle. And you go into the first one, just the room that the observers would go into. And in there, I don't think you find anything. I think if you're playing the second scenario, you get like some acid grenades or something. But you come out, and of course you're going to go into the next room, aren't you? But when you go into that first room, you see something twinkle on the shelf in the other room. And what that does, that immediately makes you go, I'm going to go get that. And that's all you focus on. So you leave the room, and you've already been in this one other room, remember? You've seen nothing in there. So in a way, this thing doesn't kind of make sense. You go into the next room, you open the door, you cross the room to go to this twinkling thing on the shelf, which I think turns out to be a key. And bang! A licker jumps through the glass window. And it makes me jump every time, even though I know it's happening. It's because the sound is so crisp when it happens. It doesn't make a crack sound when it breaks through the window. It makes an explosion. It just makes this pop, and it's mostly silent up until this point. So also it's like and all this stuff. And you're going up to all this. You got the footsteps of Claire, and all of a sudden, crash! It jumps through the window. And this is quite early on in the game as well, so you're not really all that powered up. So this licker has jumped behind you. You can run around it, but it's really hard not to get hit. So you're either going to fight it or run around it. But it just jumps through that window, makes that almighty crash, and it's really brilliantly animated as well. And of course, the licker, you don't expect it because the licker was in the room that you just went to, which not only suggests that the licker was there all along, but it suggests that the licker was actually above you the whole time. So it has to be, because where else could it have come from? And earlier on in the game, you find the licker crawling along the ceiling. So I love that sort of aftershadowing, I guess you could call it, that the licker must have been in the room when you were there. You just didn't know it. That it saw you go in the other room, it dropped from the ceiling, and then jumped through the window. There's a number of moments like that in Resident Evil. The birds coming through the window. There's a sequence with dogs as well. Windows are really utilized in Resident Evil. It happens a lot in Resident Evil 4, certainly happens in 3, I'm not sure about 1. Yeah, it's one of my favorite Resident Evil moments. It's up there with the regenerators that I mentioned earlier. And it just makes me jump every time. It's brilliant horror game designing. It's awesome, I love it.
All right. So my next one's not really from a horror game, but for someone who was as young as I was when I played it, still pretty horrifying. So in Diablo 1, which is arguably the most horrific of the series, not really horror, but whatever. When you find the butcher, so you already know about the butcher from someone.
I think. Sorry, Joe, I think you cut out then. Did you mention the name of the game?
Diablo 1.
Oh, okay, yeah, go on.
Yeah, so when you find the butcher, so you get told about this from the dying man out the front of the cathedral if you get him. And so you're all right. You're pretty low leveled when you find the butcher, but you open this room and he just comes out at you. Like, he's really fast, he's really strong, and his room is just filled with blood, but he does not stop coming after you. So you're just sitting there like, I'm never going to win. It's either run away or die. So,
and forgive me for here, but isn't Diablo's like basically a top-down isometric RPG, isn't it?
yes.
So and it's primarily like mystical, magical, demons and things like that. Nothing so real world as a murdering butcher character.
Yeah, but I was.
So it's got like juxtaposition, that kind of like an expected quality.
Yeah, so when I played it, I was fairly young because Diablo came out the year I was born. So that was actually my first video game that I played, and I had to put it down for ages. I could not pick it back up.
There are loads of moments I can think of, like apprehensively jump back into a game. Resident Evil probably when I was younger. Even Doom I found a bit scary at times. But so who's this butcher then? What does he use? So he's there just like chopping people up, and you just stumble in on his whole operation.
Essentially, he's just in a room, like this small box of a room, just chopping people up, and his room's just covered in blood and dead bodies. And the minute you open the door, he just comes out and runs at you, yelling "fresh meat."
Oh god!
So when you're very young, it's just like, what am I gonna do?
Can you fight him though, or do you have to run?
You can fight him, but you've got to be really, really careful of like how many health potions you have, and you've got to make sure that he doesn't hit you very often because his weapon is special and takes a little bit more damage than normal. So he's only on level 2 of the game, so if you find him, you're kind of screwed because you won't be very high leveled.
Sounds awesome. I've always wanted to play Diablo, but I've never actually got around to it.
You should. It's good.
It's definitely a good game. Like 1 and 2 are probably like some of my favorite RPGs, like on the PC.
Yeah, I think
I've never been a fan of that whole point and click kind of interface, like Guild Wars. Not Guild Wars. What am I thinking of? This one is really, really well known. EverQuest.
No.
It's where you point and click, and the character goes to that area.
There's a lot of games.
Yeah, not really narrowing it down, but he kind of I don't like having that. I rather have direct control over my characters when I play a game. So the idea of pointing and clicking to make a character go somewhere just feels like I don't have enough control. So it just feels clunky and unfriendly, and I wouldn't enjoy it. But now that you say that, I think maybe I should jump into it because it sounds like right down my alley. Actually, I just need to acclimatize to that sort of style of gameplay.
Yeah.
It looks nice and I don't want to say simple, but it looks kind of like it's just I don't say I was going to say dumb, but I don't want to go offending people who like the game. I mean, it looks kind of like just good, stupid fun. You know what I mean? Just like a classic RPG, nothing too complex. Just level up like crazy and just fight things. It's probably deeper than
the one thing that like made it like a very good experience was the fact that you could drop in and out of like other people's games, so it was multiplayer too. I think that's the first one too, right? Yeah. Diablo 1 and 2 were definitely multiplayer focused. So like you could have like I think like up to 4 or even maybe 6 people.
I'm not sure about Diablo 1. I never really experienced that, but Diablo 2 had that. Yes.
Diablo 2, definitely had that. But like I remember playing on Battle.net, like where everything was connected. Like you had your Diablo account, and then you had your StarCraft account,
Oh
and they were
God.
sort of like interchangeable. Yeah, so like you could actually so like from chat, like you could be like, hey, you want to go, fighting in Diablo? Okay, sure, let's go, and then you would pull up your character on screen and have your potions, your weapons, and your inventory. And then
Nice.
yeah, then you could and then and then your friends could join you in that session too. And you were sort of like playing on your own private server, which was cool. It
Awesome.
like yeah, then it was all like it was pretty cool. It was definitely friends definitely made that game fun. So
It
if
did.
you
They
have
did.
yeah. Yeah, so if you have to, definitely play with friends. It's an experience.
Awesome. All right, so we're running out of time, so let's move along real quick then. So, John, what's your number 2?
Let's see. My number 2 is going to be Resident Evil Director's Cut, and this game, like most people, have probably at least seen people play it or seen snippets or whatever, or definitely heard references to it. It is a third-person action horror, and like the
I would be
very
astonished if any of our listeners haven't heard of it.
yeah, right. But yeah, like it was definitely an experience. So like the very first thing that you do, right? Like let's say like you enter the mansion and all that, and then you take the control. I think of Jill Valentine, and you're thrust in this room, but then like later on you could actually go back to the main hallway, and then if you open that front door, right, depending upon which version of Resident Evil you actually own, you'll see like this dog kid just come at you from the door, and that was really scary. Like that made me jump. Like that dog
through the
seemed
door?
like through the door, because like you open the door, right, and then you just see this dog like stick its head in there and try to bite you, and then you close the door really quickly. And there are lots of scenes from that game that I remember as being scary, but this was like the first one that made me jump in that whole game.
The Resident Evil series does jump scares very well.
Oh yeah, that's the first though. That's like definitely one that you remember as a kid, just like, oh shoot, like, oh crap. And that was like that was the one that made me jump the most. Opposed to like going through a hallway, where the first time you go through this one hallway and there are windows along the hallway, and then the hellhounds will actually jump through those windows to attack you.
When it comes to there's a brilliant one in Resident Evil 2 where I think it's Leon's scenario, second scenario, I believe, where you are running down a corridor, and of course, when you go windows and doors, you can, you can expect things to jump through, but not walls. There's a scene where one of the tyrants, one of the BOWs, literally smashes through the wall, and like right in front of you. And again, it's just like the liquor coming through the window. It's just so sudden, just bang. And I think that's your first encounter with him as well. So you never expect it on your first play, even when you're playing it your 3rd or 10th or 11th time, you just kind of forget all about it. And you're running down this corridor, and it's a corridor that you've already ran down in previous scenarios as well. So in Claire's scenario, you've already ran down this corridor, so you just don't expect it at all. And bang, this gigantic monster of a guy comes through in this long green coat, who appears to be this mindless sort of Frankenstein-like zombie giant that just can't be stopped by any conventional means, just starts slowly walking towards you and, tries to like basically punch you to death. But no, yeah, I like that one. That was cool. So let's jump straight to our number ones then. Now, my number one is not actually from a horror game. But when it first began, when the series began, it was kind of thought of initially as to be a first-person Resident Evil type of adventure. But this comes from it comes from Half-Life 2. And there's only one horror moment really in Half-Life 2, and that's we don't go to Ravenholm. And it's I don't want to pick out a moment, actually. I think the entire area is my number one, because you go from all this sort of regular scenery, like cities, beach fronts and things like that, and caves and tunnels or whatever. But then you go through a doorway, and you enter into this almost... it's kind of like an area that's just been left to rot in a way. And it has. It's completely degraded. It's overgrown with grass. It's on fire in certain areas somehow, if I remember correctly. And there's classic sort of Half-Life style zombies and new enemies running around like these poisoned poison head crabs rather, and then a bunch of other many enemies that are particularly dangerous as well. And there's also like child zombies, which make this kind of like almost hyena-like laughter in a way. I would describe it as laughter, but I don't think it is laughter. I think it's more of not even a giggle. It's more of a kind of a noise of anticipation, like an excitement that they make because they detected you. And when they jump at you as well, they make this kind of, very much like the regenerators, they make this kind of like this growl, and it's quite, in a way, almost playful sounding. It sounds like they're kind of like they are completely having great fun. It sounds like they're having fun and they're enjoying basically hitting you in the face with their claws and stuff like that. But the whole thing is it's designed perfectly as far as horror gaming goes, and I really wish Valve would do a horror game after playing this, because I think they would nail it. And yeah, so Ravenholm, the entire area of Half-Life 2, is my favorite horror game moment, and it's not even a horror game. Full of brilliant enemies. It just goes from this light stone tunnel, and then you find yourself in this dark, almost completely unrelated. It just feels like another realm, another world when you enter it, because it's completely different from the rest of the game. And it's, in my opinion, the best horror game moment that I've ever experienced.
All right, so my final one is from my personal favorite game, Outlast. So when you first see the Wall Rider up close, so the main bad guy in the game, it's really creepy because it doesn't attack you per se. It just sort of like flies across the screen, and you only see a very brief glimpse of it. But at the same time, it just stops you in your tracks, because you're just like, what was that? And what am I encountering? Like, you've seen it before. Like, you saw it briefly on a screen in the game, but it's like, you don't sort of connect that to the fact that you're going to encounter it and it's going to try and kill you later. So I think it's like...
Oh, it's cool, yeah.
Yeah, it's... And the Wall Rider's like not anything like fantastical or whimsical. It's nanomachines. So it's sort of realistic as well.
No, I'm looking at it now, and it looks like it's a kind of enemy which is really hard to detect and see.
Yeah.
And I've always said, when it comes to not just gaming but movies as well, is that the scariest things are always what you can't see.
Yeah.
Or at least what you can't be 100% sure is there. It's why ghosts are actually quite scary, is because you can't really know that they're there. And so in games, again, with going back to Pixie and going back to the regenerators, when you can only just about hear them and you don't know where they exactly are, that's terrifying. The child zombies in Half-Life 2, you can hear them running up pipes when you're on top of a building, so they can come from any corner of the building that you are on. And these Wall Riders practically blend in with the environment.
Yeah, because the only way you can see them is with your night vision mode on your camera.
Oh, is that what that is? Right.
Yeah, and if you do see it and it's like really close, you know you're screwed because it doesn't. Once it finds you, it doesn't really ever let up until you're dead.
Yeah, I got an image here of one person being looks like they've been torn up pretty bad.
Yeah, that happens. That's yeah.
Kind of reminds me of it reminds me of something, but I can't quite put my finger on it. In a way, it kind of reminds me of Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, it gave me that sort of vibe as well when I played it.
There's a look at a great image right now where like it's in a hallway and the wall rider is sort of surrounded by black mist. I imagine this is some sort of airborne kind of light nanomachines that are kind of coming together.
Yeah.
And all you can see is like two white eyes. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
So seeing that running at you it sounds daunting as hell. So that's an awesome character.
Yeah, I like it. I like the Wall Rider.
Go on, John. What's your number one?
And let's see, my number one is going to be Until Dawn. And this is a horror game that is definitely taking a lot of elements from the slasher, from like some of the slasher flicks. Like it looks like it takes stuff from Friday the 13th, with like these kids or whatever, or these people just like kind of going to this one place. Like, first they go to a cabin and then they go elsewhere, and they sort of all just kind of split up under different circumstances. And then of course the Saw movies, which is basically like a game to whoever is kind of pulling the strings. But definitely one of the creepiest scenes is when you first start the game at this like sort of like cabin in the woods type of thing. Like this cat, you gotta start searching for like different things, like not necessarily clues, but you find like totems and you find like little collectibles, and then and then all of a sudden, right, you get split up and you're just like, oh shoot, I'm all alone now, then you have to, and then like each action or inaction that you take throughout that whole game is going to have this butterfly effect later on, where like you might kill somebody off just because something, of something that you did, or like if you kill, or let's say like, I don't know, there's just like so many like turns, and it's good for so many playthroughs too, because you're trying to save yourself, and then you like if one person dies, then that's one person off the bucket list. So you have to at least have one person survive like everything that's sort of thrown at them in this huge giant game. And it's really interesting. It's definitely one of those games to check out, along with the VR game. I think it's like Rush of Blood or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that now.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely the beginning though is the creepiest moment because you have no idea what you're gonna do, like what's gonna happen. Like every action or inaction leads to somebody's death, or it leads to a whole nother side quest, like side type of like activity that you have to do.
It looks like it doesn't like hold back on the violence as well. So I'm gonna see.
It does not. No.
Of a girl
like
having her eyes gouged out by the looks of it.
Yeah, like one person will be in a device, sort of like vindictive of the Saw movies, or like you'll have somebody who's like, or you have like two people, right? And like one of them, is about to fall off a cliff. They're clinging onto the ledge, or like there's just it's definitely a lot of mystery, like a lot of sort of like trying to figure out what the best route is to save like each particular character that
it's like high replay value
are. Yeah, so yeah, you're definitely put in the place of each individual character though, like throughout the whole game, and it's pretty cool. And at the same time, I would say the whole thing in itself, the whole game in itself, is definitely the best part. It's definitely the most horrific part of the experience. But yeah, definitely that first part though. You know, seeing the cabin for the first time and then going on to the to like the cave and then the mansion and then like the where it splits up. That's definitely one of the most terrifying aspects of that game as a whole.
Awesome. Do you know, this is making me realize I'm missing out on a lot. Actually play pretty much any modern games. So like Kholat, Outlast, Until Dawn. So was mentioned earlier. I forgot what it was. Well, it was Diablo, of course, but that's not necessarily a new game.
Eternal Darkness.
I just added a good number of games to my list, and horror games on a modern console sounds.
Yeah.
Well, Rule of Rose, yeah, of course. But that obviously will be really, really hard to come by. All right, guys.
No, not if you're rich.
Yeah. Although actually, Silent Hill 3 as well. I mean, I'm not that, so I would love to see this theme park that you're talking about, because like I say, I love that sort of juxtaposition of like good and bad. You know.
Play that and then the park. Yeah, play that and then the park, and then you'll see. Yeah, play them both like together. You'll see.
Actually, no, Kholat will probably be my next one, because like the Outlaw Pass incident is fascinating, so I'll probably jump on that actually. Cool, excellent, guys. So we should wrap up now then, because we ran over a little bit. Thank you for joining me. That was a cool bunch of number 5s. Do play any of the games that I've missed, of course. The Suffering is a really overlooked game. Really good mix of action and survival horror as well. Really cool. Survival is not quite the right word, really. It's more of a first-person shooter horror, really, or third-person shooter, depending on how you play it. Do play Manhunt, John, because I wouldn't mind your thoughts on the Pigsy sequence. It's really cool. Anyway, so we'll wrap up now then. Thank you for joining us, listeners. We would like to hear your number 5s as well, or any of your favorite horror game moments for that matter. Send them to us. You can send it to us on the Facebook page, which is Retro Rumble Pod. It's also Retro Rumble Pod on Instagram and Twitter. So you can also join our Discord as well. Just go over to our website and you'll see a link to our Discord, I believe. Yes, on the right-hand side, you'll see yourself and John as well. So we'd love to hear about your favorite horror game moments. I was going to promote the next topic, but I'm not sure what that's going to be for our next show. But do join us next Friday. We are a little bit late on this episode because we had some technical problems yesterday, so this is a bit of a late episode. So sorry about that. We'll be here again though next Friday at 9 p.m. UK time BST, and 1 p.m. I think would be Pacific Standard Time. I'm not sure what it is for you guys. Was it like 3 there right now? Is it something like where you are, Chelsea, I believe?
It was like 7 a.m. for me.
Oh, okay. No, okay. Oh, yeah.
For me, it's like 3.
Oh, it was yourself that I was thinking of. Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, just 9 p.m. BST, because I'm from Britain, I go by my time. So 9 p.m. BST, but just jump onto Google and convert it or whatever. And yeah, we'd love to hear your favorite horror game moments, and anything you send us will likely mention on the very next episode of this show. So join us next week, and and you can follow myself on Instagram at Atomic Space Ninja and Retro Rumble Pod for the show. What about you guys, Chelsea? How can listeners get in contact with you?
So I'm on Twitter under the handle Cybugs. I'm on Instagram under the same handle. And that's SAIBUGS. SAIBUGS.
Cool. Excellent. And what about you, John? How can people get a hold of you or follow what you're doing?
I'll be a JT Scout on Facebook. You could message me there or send me a friend request. I will also be on Instagram, where I do cosplay photography, cosplay_book, and Twitch, where I stream oftentimes at night as cosplay book, one word. I should stream until dawn. That game is awesome. But yeah,
Chelsea, stream Kholat. I don't think we do enough streaming for the site, so Chelsea should stream Kholat, and I'll stream The Suffering, I guess.
I totally should.
Yeah, we shall be ushered. Cool. Great. So hopefully you guys will be joining me again soon. And thank you for listening, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.